The Raiders have released their first unofficial depth chart of the 2025 season, so I'll talk about what stood out to me the most, plus the Chip Kelly effect. What will it be on this Raiders offense? That plus more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for September 3rd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes on the YouTube page, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. And it feels like it's not a day that goes by that we don't get a shout out or a compliment on the YouTube page, including one from my guy, Richard Dominguez. Big shout out to him in Motown. That's Modesto, California. The 209, big-time season ticket holder for the Silver and Black, frequent viewer of the Locked On Raiders podcast on the YouTube page, and let it be known that he's checking us out by way of the YouTube page. And I continue to let everyone know, without Ari, there is no YouTube page. So big shout out to my man, Richard. Again, big-time season ticket holder. Look forward to seeing you at the Torch at Allegiant Stadium week 2 for the Raiders season home opener, Monday Night Football against the Chargers. And thanks so much for tuning into the show. So again, without Ari, it's not existent, the YouTube page. My dad watches the show by way of the YouTube page as well. So big ups to Ari. Appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. As a matter of fact, we'll close out the show hearing from you. A lot of good calls, a lot of good texts, plenty of great feedback. We'll close out the show. Really good stuff. 707-654-4693. That's how we normally hold things down. Segment number 2, speaking of texts and calls, got a really good text from Del Amigo Raider talking about the Raiders offense and Chip Kelly and how he felt that it could be in 2025. And I talked about it briefly on the podcast. I wanted to talk about it on my radio show last week, but then the Micah Parsons deal happened. So then it got put on the back burner. So then on Monday, I was able to talk about it on the radio show, Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920. Great feedback from Raider Nation, but I want to give you my overall thoughts on the Chip Kelly effect in 2025 for the Silver and Black. That'll be in segment number 2 of today's show. And here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day. We'll go ahead and jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. So we'll definitely get that later on in the show. But here we go. News and notes off top. We'll be back at practice today. I'm excited about the way that the Raiders, at least this week, have practice set up. I mentioned it on Tuesday's show, 12:15 to 1:45 Pacific time. We'll be able to talk to head coach Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, and also get inside the Raiders locker room. First time that it's a game week that will be inside the Raiders locker room this year. And then, of course, I'll hustle back to the house and do my radio show. But 12:15 to 1:45, great window for me. After that, then they'll have practice. But the practice session is only open to the media for the first 15 minutes, which is stretching. So I'm not really missing anything. Only thing I won't be able to see is who's out there, who might not be out there in attendance. But I'll be able to follow that along by others that are out there by way of Twitter. So looking forward to being able to get inside the Raiders locker room and talking to a few of the players ahead of this week's matchup versus the New England Patriots. But with that being said, the first depth chart has been released, and it's unofficial. It's a good idea of what they're doing, but doesn't mean that it's set in stone of what they're going to do. So just looking at it real quick, and as the weeks go and the depth chart changes, if it changes, I'll go over it more frequently. But real quick, starting wide receivers, Dante Thornton Jr., Jacoby Myers on the outside, Trey Tucker in the slot. Offensive line, left to right, Colton Miller, Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers-Johnson, and DJ Glaze. Too deep on the offensive line, Charles Grant, the rookie, is behind Miller. Caleb Rogers, the rookie, behind Parham. Will Putnam is behind Meredith at center spot. Alex Kappa is behind JPJ. And Stone Forsythe is the right tackle behind DJ Glaze. Tight ends, Brock Bowers is the first team. Second team, Michael Mayer with Ian Thomas holding down the third. Amari Cooper, just added to the roster, is behind Jacoby Myers. Jack Besh is behind Trey Tucker. Besh is the rookie. And behind Geno Smith is quarterback Kenny Pickett. Running back is Ashton Genty, followed by Zamir White, Raheem Mostert, then Dylan Lobby. Kind of what we all expected offensively. Defensively, defensive line, Max Crosby, one edge rusher. Malcolm Kuntz the other, 2 defensive tackles. Thomas Booker the fourth. How about that? And Adam Butler. So Thomas Booker the fourth, they made the trade with the Philadelphia Eagles, brought him in. I said there's a good chance that he's going to be competing for a starting spot. On this depth chart, he's a starter alongside Adam Butler. Behind Crosby, you've got Tyree Wilson. Behind Booker, you've got Jonah Laulu. Leki Fotu is behind Adam Butler. Charles Snowden is behind Malcolm Kuntz. And then you've got J.J. Pegues and Tonka Hemingway, the 2 rookies, one behind Laulu and one behind Butler and Fotu. At the outside linebacker positions, Jermaine Pratt and Devin White. The middle linebacker, Landon Roberts. Behind Pratt is Jamal Adams. And behind Devin White, Brennan Jackson just picked up from the L.A. Rams. So there's that. Tommy Eichenberg and then Cody Lindenberg are the middle linebackers behind Landon Roberts. But Jamal Adams is a guy that we expect to see in the game early and often. Just don't know what that is exactly going to look like. So he's just listed there behind Jermaine Pratt, but we know he's going to have a package for him as well. This is where it gets interesting. The cornerbacks, and they have them all listed as first team, even though normally the nickel corner is behind one of the outside corners. But they have Darnay Holmes, Caillou Blue Kelly, and Eric Stokes. Stokes and Kelly will be the outside corners. Darnay Holmes will be the nickel corner. So Caillou Blue Kelly beat out the rookie Darian Porter, who's right behind Kelly. So he'll be the second team. DeCam Richardson will be the second team behind Eric Stokes. Very thin in the secondary. Very thin. I mean, again, Darnay Holmes, Caillou Blue Kelly, Eric Stokes, Darian Porter, and DeCam Richardson. And that's it. Now, I know Jeremy Chin, who's listed as a strong safety, has an opportunity to come up and play the big nickel, so he'll be in that kind of spot, that kind of position, but very thin in the secondary. But you got to shout out Caillou Blue Kelly. He's a guy that's been around the league a couple years, and he earned that outside corner spot, and it's going to give Darian Porter a little bit of time to learn that position, the third-round pick out of Iowa State. But, man, I'll tell you, he's going to have to learn quick, fast, and hurry because that is that's a paper-thin room right there as far as the secondary goes. And then the safeties, free safety as Isaiah Polamau. Jeremy Chin is a strong safety behind Isaiah. You got Chris Smith. And then behind Jeremy Chin, Tristan McCullum, who the Raiders just picked up for the Philadelphia Eagles. So when I look at this depth chart, what it tells me is what a lot of us kind of talked about when we were talking about the initial 53-man roster and how the Raiders were going to put it together. It was pretty easy for us to identify about 48 guys. And then after that, it was like, all right, well, who else is going to make the roster? All right, well, who else is going to make the roster? And then once we got to 53, you saw there was a handful of moves that were made, just kind of tweaks here and there. Guys that were on the roster moved off the roster. Guys that were on the practice squad moved off the practice squad. Other guys from other organizations brought in. And that's how they ultimately end up getting to 53 that they're at right now. And this is not set in stone. By no means is it set in stone. Pete Carroll and company will have no problem making more adjustments to the roster. Of course, the specialists, A.J. Cole, Daniel Carlson, Jacob Bovenmoyer, Trey Tucker as the kick return and punt return, followed by Dylan Lobby and Ashton Genty, kind of something that we already know. But that's the depth chart, the first unofficial one. I tweeted it out at your boy Q254. So if you want to get another look at it, you can definitely do that. I found this to be pretty interesting, and maybe this is something that the Raiders as a team, as a wide receiver room, as guys that, are looking for extra motivation all the time. I found this pretty interesting, not what the Patriots were saying about the wide receivers of the Silver and Black, but Patriots media. They were talking about the chance that Christian Gonzalez, and it looks like he's probably not going to play on Sunday, and Christian Gonzalez, former first-round corner of the New England Patriots, really good, but has a problem staying healthy, which is what his big knock was when he was at Oregon, is that he got banged up quite a bit. But when he's out there, he's fantastic. But according to the Patriots media, you're going to hear it right now, they don't really think that they need Christian Gonzalez in week 1. And this is why.
I'll say I'm not terribly worried about week 1, and I've kind of mentioned this. I do not think the Raiders have a wide receiver who is necessarily someone who would warrant Christian Gonzalez's attention. Sure. Jacoby Myers is a very good player, as we know, probably a top tier or up there in terms of wide receiver twos. But then you've got Amari Cooper, who seemed like he was signed because Dante Thornton, a very talented rookie, but still a first-year player who's very much in the developmental stage. And then Trey Tucker, who's a fast receiver, but not exactly somebody that you're game planning around. The only significant threat is Brock Bowers, as we know. I would love to see Christian Gonzalez covering Brock Bowers in some passing situations because we know Brock Bowers has wide receiver skills in a smallish tight end's body, but at the same time, you don't need Gonzo week 1.
So if I'm Pete Carroll, if I'm Patrick Graham, if I'm, all these guys in Chip Kelly, if I'm John Spytek, I got that on pumping through the speakers right? I'm letting these guys hear it. Oh, man, they don't need Christian Gonzalez for week 1. The Raiders ain't got no wide receiver. And regardless of how you feel, and I think we all know that I believe that the Raiders have weapons between Jacoby Myers, wide receiver, between Jacoby Myers, between Amari Cooper, Trey Tucker, Bess Thornton. I think they have guys that can go. I don't think any team, especially not a team that won 4 games a year ago like the Raiders, has any business saying, oh, we don't need that player for this week, right? That's kind of getting a little full of yourself. Now, again, to be fair, that's not the Patriots that said that. That was just the Patriots media. But even then, like, I wouldn't go into this week and say, you know what, the Raiders don't need this guy this week. The Patriots ain't that good. I mean, this team won 4 games. What are you talking about? They need everybody and then some. So I just thought that was, kind of a bold take. And if I'm the Raiders, man, I got that statement right there on repeat. I got Ice Cube's No Vaseline playing in the background. Here's what they think about you. Here's what they think about you. Here's what they think about you. And keep playing that over and over and over. But that's just me. But Chip Kelly, I'm sure he's got plenty lined up his sleeve to hit with the New England Patriots with coming up on Sunday. We didn't get to see any of it in the preseason. So what will the Chip Kelly effect be on this Raiders team in 2025? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the show, and the first one is the title sponsor, Mazda. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. Because these moments do more than win, they push what's possible. They remind us to go the extra yard, shift into the extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. And look, in 2024, the Raiders thought that they had the guy. I thought that they had the guy in Antonio Pierce, thought they were going to lead with the defense, have a complementary offense, and be able to win some games. After what they did in 2023 to the Chiefs in Arrowhead, they were able to punch Kansas City in the mouth. They thought that they had the blueprint. Obviously, that didn't work for one reason or the other, so Pete Carroll has been brought in to move the game forward. Pete Carroll has turned over the roster to his liking as of right now. Probably more moves to come. Has his quarterback in Geno Smith. Went out and drafted Ashton Genty and feels really good about the weapons that are in place, including Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, who we'll talk about in segment number 2. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. That's what Pete Carroll and company are trying to do. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. I also want to tell you about another great sponsor here, and that is Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep by tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? No problem. Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks, like priority shipping and dedicated support, make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, as we're all the way locked in on game week number 1, New England Patriots coming up on Sunday. This is our first opportunity to see what a Raiders offense looks like, led by Chip Kelly. And wanted to make sure we got this conversation in before we actually saw a game, just because, well, this is the gut feeling that I'm having. And where did this all come from? Well, I got a text message off the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693 from my guy, Delamigo Raider. And it's funny, Delamigo, shout out to Delamigo, is a continuation school in downtown Danville, and that's actually where I graduated from, was Delamigo High. So we have that in common, me and Delamigo Raider. He says, hey, Q, Delamigo Raider here, just an observation. This year's offense feels 2010 and 2011 all over again. Geno Smith reminds me of Jason Campbell, a solid journeyman quarterback. Genty brings me that Darren McFadden energy as a first-round running back. And Chip Kelly, he's giving Hugh Jackson vibes as an innovative play caller. Hope the outcome is different this time. From our guy, Delamigo Raider. And again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I really wanted to talk about this on my radio show last week, but didn't have an opportunity to, because the Micah Parsons deal obviously was a big deal, and it happened literally as the show was starting. So never got an opportunity to get into that conversation. I did have that conversation on the radio show on Tuesday and got a lot of great feedback, I should say, from Raider Nation. on the show. But I did want to give you my thoughts on that and really expand on it because I didn't have much time in segment number 3 to really talk about it. But I'm with you. I'm with you, Delamigo Raider. I do get those same vibes, and I didn't get those vibes until you mentioned it. But as soon as that did, it kind of shook my memory. It's like, yeah, I can see exactly where you're coming from. Hugh Jackson was so good out of getting a lot out of maybe not even a lot of great talent, but he was smart where he went to everyone like Darren McFadden, like Jacoby Ford, like Sterling Moore, Jason Campbell. What do you do well? What do you want me to call for you? How do we get the most out of you? He was able to do what we've been asking as fans, as media forever, right? Don't be married to your scheme, right? Understand what your scheme is, but also understand what your players do well, and don't try to fit a square into a square peg into a round circle, right? Don't do that. So that's what he was able to do so well. And when you saw these players leave the Raiders, they never really had the success that they had with the Raiders outside of Darren McFadden when he went to the Dallas Cowboys. But I got a lot more on what I expect the Chip Kelly effect to be on the Raiders starting on Sunday on the offensive side of things. But I did want you to hear from Bill Barnwell, who does a fantastic job on ESPN, ESPN.com, all things NFL. He was on my radio show, and it's funny, he was actually on my radio show on Tuesday night as well, Game Night, and my return to Game Night on ESPN Radio, talking all things NFL in preparation for Thursday's opener, the Cowboys and the Eagles. But this is when he was on my local show, Unnecessary Roughness, and I asked him about Chip Kelly. What is his thoughts on what he's going to bring to this Raiders offense?
The Chip Kelly who left the NFL with the Niners a few years ago is very different than the Chip Kelly who's coming back. I think he's grown a lot. I think he had to recognize, hey, like, I was kind of the hot thing for a moment, and then I wasn't. And I felt like he had to recognize he didn't have all the answers. His offenses, by the time he ended his run in the NFL, they were not state-of-the-art anymore. They didn't have answers. They didn't have plan B, plan C. He goes back to college. He then goes to become an OC at Ohio State, and then his offense evolved. It looks like a modern offense now. There's more answers for stuff. The run game is more multiple and more varied than it was versus the run game he had a few years ago, especially his NFL run game. And so that's only going to help because I felt like in his time in Philadelphia and his time in San Francisco, people had answers for his stuff. Tempo was kind of the only thing he really had to work with by the end, but now he has answers with his play calling, with his concepts. And so I really think that's going to make a big difference. It's going to make life easier for Geno Smith. I think the play action stuff is going to look like what the run game has. They're going to have answers from week to week, stuff people haven't seen from week to week. They're going to be able to game plan some things, and then they can go to that tempo if they want to. They can always go fast if they decide it's necessary. So I just think he has more, sort of more cards to play than he maybe had a few years ago. And so he's a super underrated addition this year. Another key spot, offensive coordinator, play caller. And you just think about how many guys the Raiders have cycled through in all those spots over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Just having, guys who are qualified, who have experience, who have been successful, that is such a major upgrade in these roles for this organization.
I loved how Bill Barnwell said that Chip Kelly that left the NFL after the 49ers is not the Chip Kelly that is in the NFL right now. And what he's able to bring to the table and how he's a very creative mind. I feel like there's certain coaches that are really good as coordinators and not so much head coaches. I would put Chip Kelly in that category. And he had success in Philadelphia until he didn't. And he had success in San Francisco until he didn't, right? Things fell off the rails pretty quickly there in San Francisco. But he was also in charge of doing everything. He's not in charge of doing everything. All he's in charge of is making sure his offense is at the best it could be week to week and has an opportunity to play a high level chess match with the defensive coordinators, right? He's going to sit up there in the booth from the all-22 view and be able to try to scheme up his players to the best position and utilize their talents to the best of their ability. We know a Chip Kelly offense has to have the run game involved, right? And we talked about it on Tuesday's show. It doesn't necessarily have to start with the run game, but the run game's got to be involved. We know that he's going to utilize the run. He's been able to have guys run the rock wherever he's been at. I said it on Tuesday's show. I'll say it again. The Raiders will not be 32nd when it comes to the run game in 2025. They just won't, right? As a matter of fact, I expect them to be a top 10 rushing attack between Genty, Zamir White, and Mostert. And let's not sleep on Zamir White and Mostert. Right, Genty's obviously going to do the heavy lifting. I could see Zamir White being a guy, especially in the short yardage, being very Tyrone Wheatley / Zach Crockett-like. Right, and what I mean by that, being able to be that hammer that Pete Carroll called him to pick up that short yardage. because the Raiders, in my opinion, still struggle with that. We saw that in the preseason as well, something that Lincoln Kennedy brings up all the time. Want to see the Raiders do better in short yardage. So I expect they're going to use those 3 guys in the running game, and that's not all. They're going to use guys like Trey Tucker in the run game as well. I expect to see this offense run the ball really well. But again, necessarily it doesn't mean that they're going to start the game with a heavy dose of the run. They may come out and you might see them throw the ball around the yard multiple times before they ever run the ball. But that run game will definitely be involved. Other things that I think that this Chip Kelly offense is going to have is less predictability, and that might be the biggest key. How many times have you sat on your couch watching the game, or sat in Allegiant Stadium, or sat in the Oakland Coliseum, or sat anywhere at a sports bar and watched the game and saw, all right, it's 2nd and 8. I know it's coming, and call the play. 3rd and 5. I know it's coming. Call the play. How many times have we done that? I know I've done it a million times, right? You could see it coming. And look, I'm a guy who is excited about John Gruden returning his 2nd time, right? And we all know how it played out. But even then, with John Gruden, still understood what plays were coming. Josh McDaniels, I thought he was going to be better because he was a sharp offensive mind. He's another guy I'd put in that same category as Chip Kelly, right? Not a good head coach, really good offensive coordinator, right? So I thought, okay, he's going to be able to be innovative and creative. No, not so much, right? And then what? The Raiders have had so many offensive coordinators. I was talking to Jason Horowitz on my radio show, and I was like, man, how many offensive coordinators have you seen? He's like, man, like 4 or 5 in like 3 years, right? He arrived in 2022. Right, with Josh McDaniels in the first year of Devontae Adams. And, Josh McDaniels was the play caller, even though he's the head coach. But still, I mean, they had Lombardi. They had him as an offensive coordinator. Then we saw what happened. We saw, Hardegree step in. We've seen Getsy in there. We've seen Scott Turner in there. I mean, you've seen all kind of play callers. So he's already in like play caller 5 or 6 in only his short 3 years that he's been with the silver and black. And so this is something that I think you're going to see from Chip Kelly where it's not going to be predictable. And that's something that it's got to be a must, man. Having an offense that you're not going to be able to just, okay, I know what's coming here because this is all they ever do, right? And the fact that, us as fans could sit at the couch and watch and tell you everything that's happening, it's a credit for you for knowing your team, but then you know it too well. So this offensive coordinator, if we can call the plays, you think defensive coordinators that are watching film and studying can't call it? That's a problem. So Chip Kelly is not going to allow that to happen, in my opinion. I think that he's going to be way creative, and he's got a very deep playbook. And I know that in the first few games of the season, we're not going to see everything because he takes concepts and ideas from everywhere, right? I mean, he's got the tempo. That's what Chip Kelly was first famous for, was a tempo, but he doesn't have to go fast like that anymore. He'll still speed things up out of the huddle and give you the offense time to make decisions at the line of scrimmage. But he doesn't have to go as fast as he did, like say when he was at Oregon. So I just think that is going to help him in a major way. I think he's going to make things easier on Geno Smith. Hopefully, make Geno Smith more effective in the red zone. That's some area that I am concerned about because Geno turned the ball over so many times last year in Seattle in the red zone. So he's got to be smart with what he does in the red zone and how Geno has to protect the ball, but also put him in the right position. I just think ultimately with not having to be the CEO of the whole team and just be the offensive play caller and literally sit in the lab and say, okay, what can I cook up this year? I think that's a good position. I really, truly believe this, and we won't know it until we see it. Like I said, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, put the cart before the horse, but I do think when it's all said and done, he's going to be up there with the big names of offensive play callers, guys like, Matt LaFleur, guys like, I don't want to say Sean McVay because he's the top of the top, and guys like Kyle Shanahan are the top of the top, but I think he'll be up there with Liam Cohen for sure. That's why Liam Cohen got the job in Jacksonville, because he's a sharp, creative offensive mind, right? In Tampa Bay, that's where he got the love from. Guys like that, right? Even Zach Taylor, when he got the job there in Cincinnati, he was getting love for being a sharp offensive mind because he came from the Sean McVay tree, right? He wasn't even, Sean McVay, but he came from the tree. So, okay, he's going to get love. Well, I think Chip Kelly is going to get a lot of love as well. He'll be up there with, the likes of the play callers that are really well respected across the National Football League. I believe that that's going to give this Raiders team an opportunity game in and game out. Again, their offense should be the strength of this team. They have the weapons to get it done. I know a lot of people think that they don't have enough weapons. We heard from the Patriots reporters who think that the Raiders don't have a wide receiver, that Christian Gonzalez needs the cover in week 1, which I think is silly. If anything, you better put him on Brock Bowers, right? Because Brock Bowers is that dude. But that Chip Kelly is going to have a chance to play a high level of chess. And I think that he's going to win a lot of those battles. But, again, we have to see it before we know as a matter of fact, but that's what my gut feeling is when I see Chip Kelly and when I see what he's doing at practice and what I've seen what he's doing at training camp and the way that it feels like he's getting very creative and going to be able to use multiple tight ends. We talk about Bowers, but Big Mike's going to get involved. Ian Thomas is going to get involved, right? And the Raiders are not going to be shy on taking deep shots either, right? Those are going to be called up quite a bit, something that we haven't seen in quite a while. So I think you're going to see a big variation. You'll see the deep shots taken, right? The big plays, but then you also see the methodical drives, right? The ones where it's the ground and pound, Genty, Zamir White, guys like that, where the offensive line is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but they like to run block more than they like to pass block. So if all of a sudden they get cooking in one direction, they'll feel good about what they're doing and do it better. And I think this offensive line is going to be just fine. I think everyone's going to be pretty happy with what they see from them as long as they stay healthy. But the Chip Kelly effect is going to be real. I do think it's the best offensive play caller that the Raiders have had since Hugh Jackson. I know that Bill Musgrave in 2016 was really good. Maybe he's the best one since Musgrave, because he had that 2016 team humming, and then Jack Del Rio made the terrible decision to move on from Musgrave and bring in Todd Downing. And so that might have been actually the best one since Hugh Jackson was Musgrave in 2016. And I was very on the fence about him when the Raiders hired him. It's like, I don't know about him. But he had that 2016 offense humming, right? Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, right? All these guys were getting it done. Latavius Murray, right? They were able to make things happen. And they were playing at a very high level. He was able to dial it up. I think you're going to see that, but times 10 from Chip Kelly in 2025. But it's on Chip Kelly and the Raiders to go get that going and get that started. And that gets started coming up on Sunday on the road versus New England. But what's on your mind, your calls and texts? How are you feeling? 707-654-4693. We'll close out the show hearing from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple more great sponsors here on the show. And the first one is Yahoo Fantasy. As a matter of fact, this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner. Kickoff is tomorrow. Eagles and Cowboys. You can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. As a matter of fact, a lot of you enjoy the Raiders squad show. Chantel Chan, the young lady who gets her Howard Cosell on and leads the way for Lincoln Kennedy and myself, she's playing football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff September 4th, that's Thursday, now's the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. You want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in private league. No crew? No problem. Join a public league. It's the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. I also want to tell you about FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here. It's a day away. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Right now, if you're checking out the game for the Raiders and the Patriots on Sunday, the Patriots are favored by 2.5 points. That's courtesy of FanDuel.com. And everyone loves using FanDuel. It's easy. It's however you want to place your bet. You can make a same-game parlay, even jump into live action as it all unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Of course you're ready to play. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Went a little long there in segment 1 and 2, so only got time for a couple calls and texts, but we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Raider X will lead us off. He'll get his Ricky Henderson on. He's calling to talk about what he's most excited about for the Raiders and this upcoming season. Here's Raider X.
Yo, Q, this is Raider X. Just wanted to give you my little input and also get your breakdown of the things I'm most excited about this new season coming up on Sunday. Just the infusion of excitement from the Raiders, the youth, the coordinators, everything, the coach. I don't think I've seen this much excitement or things coming from the Raiders since the Gruden return, and I don't think that was so much from the Raiders. I think it was more about the fans expecting Gruden number 1. But I think this time it's coming from the Raiders. The general manager, the coaches, the offensive coordinator, the coaches, all throughout speckled. I mean, there's so many different coaches, without, having that list in front of me of even the position coaches. Obviously, holding on to, Graham and also Robbie Leonard. I mean, those are just key elements to really get excited. I'm excited about the offense because obviously I expect great things, but I'm more excited about the youth. So many rookies, so many new pieces that are young. Obviously, there's a lot of mix for, a lot of veterans, but it's the young individuals because if they're able to have a successful year, even going above 500, man, we got something. Like you would like to say, then we're cooked with grease. I'm just saying that's something coming on. So I'm just excited. It's the youth, like you said, also the adults in the room. But there's really some talented adults, and I think we're building something. I just hopefully everything comes out. But I'm just excited to see them succeed because it'll be a carryover to the next year and the next year. This is Raider X out.
X-Man, thanks so much. I appreciate you. Good call on Gruden returning. I was pumped. I thought we were going to see Gruden number 1. Obviously, we didn't get that. We know how it all ended. As far as the team being excited, that is true as well. As I'm around the facility, I can tell that they've all bought in. If they're not all bought in, they won't be sticking around. They'll be weeded out quick, fast, and in a hurry. They are truly all bought in on this team, and that means something. It really does. It's something that Lincoln Kennedy, when he showed up to practice the first time, said, that's the most important thing I want to see. Are these players bought in, or are they just going through the motions? He walked away from practice and said, yeah, they're all bought in, which is a big deal. And so now they're down to 53 men. Yeah, they definitely are all the way bought in, and they know they have to compete for their job each and every day. So that will give them at least a leg in the right direction, right? Going in the right direction, rowing in the same positive direction. That's all that you can ask for, and then let the chips fall where they may. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Ty in the 360. Hey, Q, it's Ty G from the 360. I don't want to overthink the X's and O's for the upcoming game against the Patriots. I do think it's worth noting that Patrick Graham was McDaniel's DC when he was the head coach. This gives him some extra insight as how he might attack our defense, since he understands how Graham thinks. Do you think Pete Carroll's influence will help our strategic approach this week for the defense? A weak secondary and a wide open middle of the field, along with that what McDaniels knows of PG, makes me nervous. I just wonder if PG calls a different game than what we'd normally see this week to open the season. Noah McDaniels is probably going to have a confident game plan himself. Thanks for everything you do. Let's go get that dub on Sunday. The season's finally here. Raiders. That's Ty in the 360. It's a good point that you bring up. McDaniels knows Patrick Graham really well. The secondary is very thin. I talked about that in segment number 1 when we went over the depth chart, man. It is thin, right? There's a lot of new right there. There's not a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the linebacker room and the secondary, that have played together. So they're going to have to be able to communicate in a major way. And just like I said about Chip Kelly, Josh McDaniels is a really good offensive coordinator. So he's definitely going to dial things up to try to, go against Patrick Graham and get the most of them. I do believe that the Pete Carroll influence will help out PG as well. I'm interested to see what Patrick Graham looks like coaching from the field as opposed to the booth. I liked him in the booth getting that all-22 view, but Coach Carroll said he liked him on the field. He likes to be able to communicate with them, and he likes him to be able to look into the players' eyes and talk to them and get the energy of the game as well. So we'll see how that plays out. But what I feel like is almost a guarantee is that the defense that we've seen from Patrick Graham the past few years is not going to look the exact same this year under Pete Carroll. His influence will definitely be seen in a major way. So thanks so much for that text. Definitely appreciate you. Got a quick call here from Raider fan 1972. He's calling to talk about a scenario if the Raiders were to take the field offensively on Sunday and did this, how cool that would be. Here he is, Raider fan in 1972.
Hey, Q, Raider fan 1972 here. I absolutely agree with you that the game against the Patriots will be won in the trenches. But as I was sitting at work today, not sitting, but while I was working, I thought of the look on the faces of the Patriots sideline if we took out, get a 5 wide receiver set right off the bat. Genty out, not on the field, shotgun formation, see the scrambling going on with the safeties in the corners. I think it'd be really funny to watch because we have 2 speed demons, not to mention Brock Bowers. Make them sweat a little bit. Anyway, I thought it was funny. Hope you got a good chuckle out of that. Hopefully they do it, and it works. Talk to you later, and go.
Raider fan, thanks so much for the call. And that would be funny, right? Everyone, they line up 5 wide. Everyone talking run, pound the rock, and then the Raiders go 5 wide, right? And then you run Trey Tucker in motion and do a pop pass to him, and then let him go. All the wide receivers streaking down the field, right? The cornerbacks are running with them, and Trey Tucker picks up a good 10, 15 yards, first down, bada boom, bada bing. The wide receivers are there blocking as well. Now you want to talk about creativity. I talked about Chip Kelly's offense and his influence in segment number 2. That would be a creative way to start the game on Sunday. I don't think that that'll happen. I don't think that that's a play that we won't see at some point. Not saying it's going to see it on Sunday, but we'll see it sometime this year, right, where it looks like it's going to be an all points go. Everyone's got a route that they're going to be running, and then you see a little pop pass to Trey Tucker, and he makes things happen. I'm just throwing it out there. That's how I feel like we're going to see that at some stage of the game. But thanks so much for the call. Do appreciate you. Just got time for a couple more. This text is from Jay in Syracuse, New York. Q. Jay from Syracuse, New York. I was getting ready for game week, but I want to focus on you for a second. I've been listening to you since the Black Hole Banner days. I love your story. To me, you're living the dream. I know you're never content, always looking for the next chapter, but do you ever pinch yourself thinking you're dreaming? Don't take me wrong. You have earned all of it. You're a lifelong Raider fan, and most of us don't get to be in the locker room talking to the team. What is it like for you? Have you ever been starstruck? I'd love to hear your story about a moment when it really hits you that you're doing what we all wish we can do. That's Jay in Syracuse, New York. Thanks for the text. I appreciate you. And yeah, man, I don't take it for granted at all. Very blessed to be in this opportunity. To be honest, most of the time you don't get an opportunity to cover your favorite team growing up. And normally you probably shouldn't, right? Because it's very hard to be, objective when you're doing that because you're a fan, right? We're all fans first. That's how we all got here. So it's been challenging. I'm blessed that when I started this, I was in Texas covering the Cowboys, and I was easily objective when I'm covering the Cowboys because I'm not a fan. So I tried to take that same approach with the Raiders, and I know sometimes Raider Nation is not a big fan of that. They want me to fanboy out, but I really can't do that if I want to be, respected. I want to be taken seriously. I don't want you to think that, here's just a fan that's just going to, flip out and this, that, and the other. Not that there's something wrong with that, but I just want you to know that when I say something, it's coming from a point of this is what I believe, not what I'm hoping for. As far as a moment that was a pinch me moment, I think when I first pulled up to the Raiders facility, when I first arrived in Vegas in 2021, and I did my first show from the Raider facility. It's funny. Matter of fact, it wasn't even unnecessary roughness. I was actually filling in for Vinny Bonsignore, who was doing the night show in the huddle, and he was on vacation, so I was filling in for him. I did the show from Raiders HQ, and that's when John Gruden was still the head coach. And it's funny, they convinced me to pull my car closer instead of parking in the back. I just wanted to stay out of the way, so I parked in the back and started walking forward, and the security is like, no, man, you can park closer. It's all good. So I finally did. I drove up, and I saw this blue Mercedes rolling up, and I saw this blue Mercedes slowing down. I'm thinking, oh, boy. And I see the window roll down. I'm like, oh, boy, that means that I got to roll the window down, too. So I roll the window down. It's John Gruden. And he's like, hey, nice truck. And then my dumb self was like, hey, nice car, coach. Yeah, he's got a blue Mercedes. You think it's a nice car, Q? You big dummy? You couldn't say anything else. But he was like, hey, man, thanks for being here. We appreciate you. Have a good show. I was like, oh, wow, he knows who I am. That's really cool. So that was really kind of the moment that it hit me that I'm doing this for real, right? I'm about to walk into the Raiders facility, state-of-the-art facility. I just talked to John Gruden in the parking lot. He told me to have a good show. I'm going to go have a good show, and he's probably listening. So that was a pretty cool moment for me and just kind of made me feel like, yeah, I'm I do this. The other thing that makes me pinch myself is when I'm at games or when I'm somewhere like practice, training camp, whatever, and fans are around and they're like, Q, hey, what's up? And start talking to me like I'm a celebrity or something like that. And not because I think that I am, but it's just the fact that I understand how many people listen to this show and listen to my radio show. and really appreciate it. And so it just blows my mind when I talk to people at Allegiant Stadium or see people out and about and they're talking to me. It's a huge honor to know that I'm respected by you and all the fans and people like that. Like that to me, because I just think about it, man. I'm a kid that went to the Coliseum, right? I'm a kid that walked across the bridge at the BART, right? I'm a kid that just went from tailgate to tailgate. I'm just a knucklehead kid that went to Del Amigo High School in Danville, right? The continuation school, and just kind of stumbled into something that I love. And so those are really the moments that mean the most to me. But always knowing that I feel like I'm on the same page as you. I just happen to be blessed to be in this position where I can tell our story from a fan point of view, but I'm no different than you. I'm no different than Raider fan 1972, except for I was born in 76. No different than Ty in 360. No, none of that. Raider X. I'm you. I just happen to have an opportunity to sit behind this mic and talk and do a show and call that my job. So that's really cool. But thanks for the text, man. I do appreciate that. It's pretty awesome. We'll close out with a call from Raider T from New York by way of L.A. He's calling with a quick message to the Raiders in preparation of Sunday's game. He's a new booty caller. Here's Raider T from New York.
Hey, Q. This is Raider T from New York via Los Angeles. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'd just like to say, pay Jacoby, pay Jacoby, pay Jacoby Myers. Let's get this done before we get started beating the Patriots. You know what I'm saying, Q. All right. That's all I got. Much love to you, Q. Long-time listener, new booty. Later.
T-Man, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Appreciate you being a new booty. And don't be a last-time caller either, man. And look, you ain't got to convince me to pay Jacoby Myers. I've been very adamant. I'm probably the one that keeps thinking that this guy should be paid ASAP, and he should get a nice big chunk of change and a nice raise from where he's at. He's making $10.5 million this year, right? He should be making a lot more, in my opinion, for what he does. And I think that a lot of people underestimate what he does and the way he goes about it. It's not flashy. It's not braggadocious. It's not look at me. He just goes in there, puts his head down, goes to work. And I think there's something to be said about that. And he did that all offseason, all training camp, all preseason. He's still doing it at practice. We'll see him today. Hopefully I'll get a chance to catch up with him in the locker room, either on the record or off the record, whatever the case may be, just to chop it up with him. I'm hoping that happens, but we'll find out. But, I just think that he definitely should get paid sooner rather than later, and I'm sure that he will. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. A text from Jad in San Jose, the 408, and a call from the 814. We'll get that coming up tomorrow. We also have our first crossover edition. Nick Cattles and myself will break it down. Patriots, Raiders. We'll talk all things about the game. We'll learn a lot about the Patriots. He'll learn a lot about the Raiders, and we'll have a fun show before we close out the week, obviously on Friday. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.